I'm hoping this is a tent from Temu. I haven't opened it yet, but it should be a budget tent that could be a bit of a bargain. I'm just going to find a flat spot to set it up and then we can have a look. I think somewhere around here should do us. So this is the tent. It's called a Desert Fox. It's a 2-person tent, or on the website it said capacity is 1 person or add 1 kid. So I'm guessing it's more like a 1.5 man or 1.5 person tent. Now before I open this and set it up, I've bought some scientific implements, a tape measure and my luggage scales to make sure that the sizes that they quote and the weight that they quote are accurate. The pack size they quote is 41 by 16 centimeters. So that's reading about 47 on my tape measure. We'll see later if we can pack it down any smaller. And then at its widest, it's about 18-19 centimeters. And then for the weight, they quote that at 2.1 kilos. So let's see what these say. The weight's actually coming up at less than what they quoted, at 1.94 kilos. And it does feel quite light as well, to be fair. See if you can guess how much it costs as well. And then when I've set it up, I will reveal all. Okay, so I thought the bag opened on the top there, but it doesn't. These are just compression straps to compress it in. It's a top loader. It's flying ant day today as well, so they're all out. Smidged up as usual. That looks like the inner. We've got a set of poles, and they're 8mm aluminium poles as well. Bag of pegs. I'm guessing these won't be anything special. So they're quite thick, sort of shepherd's hook ones that you get with a lot of budget tents. A couple of guy lines in there as well that we'll have a proper look at later. Then that'll be the outer. Let's get this set up and then we'll have a proper look around it and double check the measurements of the tent as well when it's set up. Lost my other pole. So there's just 2 poles that are both the same length, so there's no messing about getting the wrong poles. It's an inner pitch first tent, which will just make some people lose their minds, but it doesn't massively bother me if I'm honest. So we shove the pole in the eyelet on the corner, and then there's a few plastic clips along the length of it. I'll just put a couple on until I've got this other pole in. So that's all the clips on, and then we've got a tie off point here to secure the middle bit. I think already one thing to point out is that you could just use the inner. If it's a really warm night, you're summer camping and you're not due any rain, you can just use that mesh inner just to keep flies off you and give you a little bit of protection. I'll show you before I put the outer on that you've got solid material up to about halfway, I would say. You've got quite a lot of mesh at the top still though for some ventilation. The clips seem pretty strong, they're quite thick plastic. There's no plastic clip here that can break. And then in the corners, there's the eyelet that the pole goes into. And then we've got clips to obviously put the outer on. There is a door on each side as well that are similar sort of style to the helm tents. It's that sort of circular door that's just attached here in the corner. It's freestanding, look. Like a 400 quid tent, that. Better get some of these top quality pegs in the corners. And the pegs just go through a loop underneath that buckle. I know it's far too early to say, but already I am quite impressed with this for the money I spent on it. Let's have a look at this outer. These corner points from the outer that connect to the buckle on the inner have got adjustment on them as well. So you want to keep them a little bit loose when you first connect them and then tighten them up once everything's ship shape. So that's each of the 4 corners connected. I've left it loose for now, just while we have a look. We've got 2 vents with Velcro and then these supporting bars. I'll put those up in a minute. One on that side and one on this side. There's a single zip door on this side with pegging points at the bottom, and these feel really strong, these ribbons. We've got a pegging point on the end to pull the outer out a bit. And then on this side we've got a double zip door. 2 pegging points again on each side of each of the 2 zips. And then another peg point on that side. In terms of guy lines, we've got 1, 2, 3 and 4. And these orange loops are for pegging back the doors. So you've got 1 there and 1 there for the single zip door. And then there's 2 here for rolling that door up. So that's it pegged out. I haven't done the guy lines, but it just feels solid. I'm 1 peg short. I've got 4 guy lines and only 3 pegs left. So that's a bit annoying. Then I've got 2 extra guy lines that can be used as spares, or you can use them when this door's open to tie it up and hold it out like a canopy, or you can use trekking poles to keep it held up as well. The only other thing I've noticed so far is these rods are just a foam inside, so they tend to bend really easily. They are doing the job, but any sort of downward force on them and they do buckle a little bit. Just before we jump in and take a look inside, I'll tell you a few more of the specs. So the materials, it's a 210 polyester on the inner and outer, and it's got a 3000mm hydrostatic head. Okay, so I've got a loop on that side and then just a ribbon here. So how does that work? Is it just... Okay, that's interesting. There's a bit of a coating on there that's made it stick. Single zips, as you would expect on a budget Temu tent, I guess. Hey, I like that. I've never had a tent with that on it before. Going in, folks. I can already see stuff that I've missed, as well as a million flies in here. Come and have a look and I'll show you. Absolute noob that I am, look. I didn't see these tie points on the outer where you can tie them around the pole. So the reason that's not lined up with the pole properly is because I'm an idiot, basically. But you live and learn, don't you? So I was hoping there'd be a better sized pocket in this corner, because that's usually what you're going to use to just shove that door into. We've got any more pockets? There's one on that side that you could put that door in. We've got a plastic hook at the top there for a lantern. And then these are the vents. So you've got one on that side and then another one on that side. Like I said earlier, you've got solid inner up to about halfway, and then it's mesh all the way around the rest. So this definitely feels like a one-man tent. There's no way you get 2 people in here, or even 1 person and a kid. I wouldn't fit in here with my dog, so Quoted sizes are 100 by 225 by 110, but we're going to scientifically measure it anyway. So the length, you could just say it's 225 at a push, but the ends are so sharp here, I'd probably only measure to probably about the top of the bathtub there, because all that space is, you're just going to be touching the outer there. So if we look at actual usable space, because of the angle of the tent, you're probably talking 200 at most, I would say. And the width they quote at 1 meter, and with the tape measure pushing the inner out as far as it'll go, it is 100, but again, it's coming in on its own. So if I measure what it's at without shoving it, it's 93. So you've got 93 centimeters wide, and then the height they were quoting at 110 centimeters. So let's have a look, skis. That's coming up at 102 centimeters. So as usual with tents like this, they're sort of over specifying the sizes. I mean, they've under-spec'd the weight, which is good, but there is plenty of space to sit up in here, which is really what matters, let's be honest. I'm 5'11", 6 foot if I need to be, and I've got sort of hand width space above my head, and it does go out quite far as well, so I can still sit up until I get to probably level with this door here, and then my head starts to touch the roof. I do quite like the design, to be honest. I like that big door there, and the fact that there's two doors, so you can get them both open, get some decent airflow through there. The size is fine if you're on your own, just on a wild camp or something like that. The colour blends in okay. It looks a bit blue on the camera here, but it is green, honestly. So good points for the tent. I like the weight of it. At less than 2 kilos, it's a decent weight. The pack size isn't horrendous, and we're going to see if we can get its pack any smaller when we put it away in a second. I like the design of it, the doors on each side, the fact that you can just use the inner on its own as well if you want to on a hot night. I like these door tie-outs that are dead easy to use, and they do seem to be holding as well. And the overall quality of it, I would say, is really good. These connections here, the peg out points, and all the stitching looks pretty decent all the way around. So did you play along and have a guess at the price? Well, I'll tell you, including delivery to my door from Temu, this tent was £56.88, which I think is a bit of a steal. There are a few negatives to it, or a few little niggles that I'll show you and tell you about now, but do bear in mind that price. None of these things are showstoppers, and they are quite easy to live with. They're just things that I've noticed that are definitely worth pointing out so that you're fully aware of the pros and cons of the tent. First thing I would do is swap out these guy lines. These are cheap stretchy ones with really cheap tensioners on them. So you're probably talking £4 or £5 for a new set of guy lines that are decent from Fleabay. I would swap these pegs out as well for something a little bit lighter and just better overall. Although these are thicker sort of shepherd's hook pegs than what you would usually get, they do still bend really easily, and they tend to spin around when they're in the ground as well. Another thing that's a little bit disappointing is these holders for the vent. You can see that one's bent there already. They're just foam inside, so you could get a couple of little sticks or something to prop those open, or find some sort of way of reinforcing that bit there, tie something to it or tape something to it. I'm well aware we're getting into proper niggle slash first world problems things now, but just a couple more things I want to tell you about. One is this door with the single zip on it. When it's open, you're still going to have 2 pegs in the floor here that hold the door there, so you just got to be careful not to trip or fall over those or stand on them and get them stuck in your foot. Another thing is, although I really like this mechanism for holding the doors open, I don't know why they've made these loops fluorescent orange, because other than those, it's quite a stealthy tent. It just kind of blends in, and then you've got these fluorescent orange loops on each corner. Well, on 2 corners on that side and then 2 at the top on this side. But other than that, for £56, can you go wrong? You know, especially when you consider how much camping gear and tents and everything else has gone up in the last sort of year or so. It's gone crazy. This would be ideal for someone who's just getting started, just getting into wild camping and wants to give it a go without spending a crazy amount on a tent. Another downside I forgot about was that missing peg as well. Unless I've done something wrong. I mean, there's 2 loops on this door that I guess, let's have a look. Yeah, you could put them both on 1 peg, so it is just me being an idiot. I don't think the inner pitch first argument is ever going to go away, to be honest, but I really don't think it's an issue. This probably takes 3 or 4 minutes to put up. Just 2 poles, clip it on and whack your outer over. But yeah, I know some people will absolutely lose their minds and just say the tent's not even worth looking at because it's not an all-in-one pitch. Does it really matter if it's just an overnight wild camp just to go and chill out? Probably matters if you're on a 3-week expedition, but who's got time for that these days? For each boss level on YouTube as well, because there's people about walking their dogs, and I'm just carrying on filming like an absolute pro. Hiya. Right. Yeah, you? Yeah. It's one thing you learn filming yourself quite a lot, staring at your own ugly mug for hours and hours while you edit your crappy videos, that it really doesn't matter what other people think. Most of the time we overthink things and think, oh, that guy over there is looking at me and thinks I'm a right weirdo. He might do, but I don't know who he is, and he doesn't know who I am. So maybe he does think I'm a weirdo, Or maybe he's just going about his day totally oblivious to me, which is more likely. Set myself off ranting now. It's what happens when I come out filming on a school night. I couldn't cope with this bag for long either. Chuck it in a dry bag and sit on it. Not only is that a good tip for packing away your tents, it's a metaphor for life, isn't it? I do store my tents in the bags that they came with after I get home, but when I'm on a camp, just shove it in a bag, get it home, because I'm usually setting it up again to dry it out anyway. So what do you think to the tent? I will be out for a camp in it soon. I just wanted to bring it out and give it a proper check over before committing to a camp in it, especially with it being from Temu, where I've had a few bits from there if you've seen my haul video, but never bought a tent from there. If you made it this far, you're eligible for a free channel subscription. Just hit that subscribe button before you go, and I'll see you next time.